In the last couple of years, I've been on a bit of a sitcom binge. Been trying to find sitcoms that I have never watched before, that I find interesting, or that I've heard of, or I've been trying to find sitcoms that I've watched random episodes of that I wanted to actually sit down and watch from beginning to end. And I'm really, really enjoying finding all these different sitcoms, ones that I have grown up with, that I never really watched every episode of. One of those type of sitcoms when I was growing up had to be The Nanny. Oh my goodness, The Nanny was absolutely hysterical. I used to love watching, the random episodes of The Nanny that popped up on our local TV broadcasting stations, and my goodness, I loved watching Fran Fine do her thing, pretending to be a nanny, even though she was really a beautician, and just wishing that I was a part of that family sometimes, being in a rich family with a nanny who let you do whatever you needed to do to grow up, I suppose. So The Nanny was definitely one of those type of shows that I really enjoyed watching, and I managed to do the whole, season from the first season to the last season, sort of a binge watch. Sitcoms can be very digestible, especially because most of them are either, they run between 20 to 25 minutes each in terms of episode run times. And so it makes it a lot easier to watch. And stories, each episode tells a quick story of what's happening for those particular characters. Sometimes there's an overarching story that will last between a few episodes, which you don't always get in sitcoms. Most of the time, the episodes are standalone stories. But there are episodes where they do continue on the arc from one episode, to like maybe 2 or 3 episodes, which is still pretty cool. Another sitcom that I grew up on and I've only watched random episodes of back then was The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Really enjoyed watching that show. There's a lot of messages in that show about about family, about being yourself or trying to fit in, or just there's so many different messages in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air that really you sort of can take on board depending on your situation. But Will Smith was actually really amazing in that show, or being this outsider that never knew anything about the classes. He was brought up in a poor family, and then he ends up finding out that he's got a rich uncle. So he gets sent over to a place called Bel-Air, and to kind of like to learn about life and to mature and to just stop acting like a delinquent, I suppose. So that was a fun series to watch as well. I do remember only ever seeing I think it was like 4 seasons that initially aired here in Australia. 4 or 5 seasons, I think it was. And then I found out that there was actually more. And I was like, well, how did this show end? There was no real end to the show. And then I found out there was a season 6, and that was the final season of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And I'm like, I never saw the final season of that show. So as an adult, I actually watched it from start to finish and managed to find the last season, which was really cool, because here in Australia, we never we never got the last. I think it was like, I think I found out. How did I find out? I found out via buying the DVDs. So buying the DVD sets per season. Every time I went into a store that sold TV shows on DVD, I only ended up finding the first 4 seasons of the show. So I never knew there were 6 seasons. But then eventually, streaming services started, and I finally got to watch The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air on a streaming service, and lo and behold, there were actually all 6 seasons on there. I'm like, wow, I had no idea. But I was glad. Another series growing up that everybody knows about was Friends. Originally, when I first watched the random episodes, I'd say as a teenager, I wasn't really a huge fan at the time. But when I got into my 20s, that's when I actually really settled into watching the show, and I ended up buying the whole series on DVD, and I watched them to nauseam because that's how much I really enjoyed Friends, and I really love Friends. I know there's a lot of people out there who don't particularly like the show Friends because of the type of humor there is in the show, but it was of its time. It was definitely of its time, especially the fact that it started back in 1994 and it ran for 10 seasons. So for a show to run that long, when it started back in the 90s, it's not usually called for. Not everybody, not a lot of TV shows ran that long back then. And then, the type of story it was, it really resonated with a lot of people. That show really resonated with so many people out there, and I love it. I love Friends so much, to the point that I am currently now wearing a Friends sweater or jumper that says "How you doing?" Because of course we love Joey. Joey is one of my favorite characters in the show. As dumb as that character is, he is so sweet, and he's just absolutely hilarious, and just makes it even better knowing that we can see a male dumb character, not always a female dumb character in comedies. So he was hilarious. Matt LeBlanc was, he was amazing in Friends. Another show that I recently actually finished watching start to finish was Everybody Loves Raymond. Now, that one would pop up like random episodes on TV when I was growing up, so I never really watched it from beginning to end back then. But then I found it on a streaming service a couple of months ago, and I managed to watch all 9 seasons of Everybody Loves Raymond. Was it 9 or 10 seasons? Anyway, I managed to watch the whole show on a streaming service, and my goodness, the stories in that show were just, oh man. The mother-in-law, Ray's mother was absolutely hilarious. And honestly, Doris Roberts, who plays Marie, sorry, I'm blanking on character names. Doris Roberts, who played Marie, was amazing. She made you think she was a monster-in-law. And I always thought that mother-in-laws, that's how they all act towards their daughter-in-laws. And I just, man, how would you feel if that was the case for you? And then I think about all of the my parents, like my other relatives and their in-laws, and think not all mother-in-laws are, that monstery or that picky about certain things and or insulting, but Marie Barone in this show was absolutely I feel like she was a bit of a narcissist. Like, she absolutely loved herself. She thought she knew everything. She thought she was all that. And it made me laugh so much every time Marie would insult Deborah, especially in front of Ray, being that Ray is Marie's favorite son. Between him and Robert. And my goodness, Robert Barone, Brad Garrett brings that character to life so well. I absolutely love Robert Barone, and I kind of feel like between him and Ray, Robert was my favorite brother. Because I resonated with Robert, because I am an older sibling myself, out of two, and Robert being the oldest between them always was pushed aside, or was ignored, or wasn't loved enough. Obviously, being a sitcom, it is absolutely exaggerated. That's not how my parents are with me. It's fine. Or how they were with me when I was growing up. But there are small things from that show where I feel like it was kind of like that. But for me, it wasn't the mum that would play favoritism. For me, it was my dad. And I think it's more so because of, I think it was just more so because of maybe education, the fact that my parents themselves came from poor backgrounds, and then they immigrated down to Australia, and they were, giving me and my sister a better life. So, through my own life and then watching Everybody Loves Raymond, I kind of resonated more so with Robert, and that's why he was my favorite character in the show. Deborah, on the other hand, she being Ray's wife and trying to impress Marie as much as possible, and trying to always, outsmart her. I felt sorry for Deborah, honestly, being that she was part of that family. So that for me was a lot of fun to watch as well. Deborah, although kind of was a little whiny, but she still pulled it off really well, being able to most of the time stand up to her mother-in-law as much as she could, even though Ray got in the way most of the time, being like, no, don't say that to my mother. And yeah. I really enjoyed Everybody Loves Raymond. It's probably one of my favorite of the sitcoms. Some more sitcoms that I watched growing up. I watched Sabrina and the Teenage Witch. Love Sabrina and the Teenage Witch. And I'd say the reason being that because I'm pretty sure I ended up watching Sabrina when I was a teenager. And so she was, because 1996, mind you, 1996, I was still in primary school. So, but Sabrina the Teenage Witch was a lot of fun to watch. Seeing this half human, half witch trying to use magic where she can, but she can't tell her friends about it. Being brought up by her aunties. It was a lot of fun to watch, and just being able to resonate with the character when it came to all these teenagey things that happened throughout was a lot of fun. So Sabrina the Teenage Witch is definitely one of those shows that I really want to sit down and actually watch it from start to finish. I've only ever seen random episodes here and there, so I need to find it on a streaming service somewhere. I hope it's on a streaming service. I really do, because I really want to watch Sabrina. I also remember when I was in high school, I ended up buying some of the Sabrina the Teenage Witch books that I read when I was in high school, and I still have them. Because I absolutely love the stories. So I kind of wish I was able to, buy more of the Sabrina books, because I just really enjoyed the stories. And I also did manage to watch, I think I'm like a season off from finishing The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Although that show itself is not a comedy, it still has some humor in it. And I really enjoyed it. I still have to watch the last season of that show, because it's really dark. It is very dark, but it's more of a drama with fantasy elements. So yeah, I do need to finish that show, but I have, knowing that it was based off of the sitcom, it's actually not such a bad story. It's actually pretty cool. But going back to sitcoms, some more of my favorites growing up that I've watched probably 2 or 3 times now from start to finish. I've watched Frasier. Frasier is so much fun. Aristocratic, class, all about psychology, trying to, it's a doctor, psychiatrist on the radio. Like, I honestly never came across any kind of radio show that was based off sort of like what Frasier was. It's not here in Australia, at least. I'm not sure what it's like anywhere else, but I've never come across a radio show where you call in and you talk about your feelings or your emotions or your behaviors with a psychiatrist on the radio for everybody else to hear. Because why do you want to air that sort of stuff to the public? But Frasier is such a good show for that, because of the type of chaos that ensues through that. Not to mention Frasier's family, his brother Niles being so upper class. Both of them being so snobby. It was so fun to watch. Kelsey Grammer is absolutely amazing, and I kind of wish I watched them when they were airing, but unfortunately I was a bit young for that because it started back in 1993 and I'm not that old. But watching Frasier as an adult has been a lot of fun. I will definitely go back and watch that again and again and not get sick of it. I have to thank my sister for that, because she's the one who brought Frasier to my attention, and it's so good. I absolutely love Frasier. Another show that I will mention is I watched Cheers as an adult. Now, it's not exactly something I will say was my favorite, but it was an interesting sitcom, especially since it aired back in the 80s and it ran for 11 seasons. And that's obvious. And, tying in with Frasier, that's where the Frasier character actually started, before Frasier, came to be. So Frasier is the spin-off show to Cheers. And I kind of like that concept, the fact that there's a character that just from another show that then became its own show. I have to admit, a lot of the characters in Cheers did irk me quite a bit, especially Sam being the main character. Of course, he is a womanizer. This is of its time. He was very sexist, but the show in itself, if you put all that sort of stuff aside, it is kind of fun. It is kind of funny, but it's probably not a show that I'll go back and watch again and again, unless I really want to. I've watched it from start to finish once, and that was enough. But it wasn't too bad. It wasn't too bad, to be honest. Man, what other? I'm just trying to like think of other shows that I watched growing up. That 70s show was one of those shows where I've only ever seen random episodes of, but it is actually pretty cool. So I don't mind watching that 70s show. I do want to go back and like find the whole series on a streaming service if I can, and see if I can watch that. Full House. Oh my goodness. I honestly never watched Full House growing up. Well, it actually started before I was born, but actually the first time I watched Full House was as an adult, and I'd say it was about maybe a few years ago now. So within the last, I'd say 5 years, I watched Full House. And I think it was more so because I knew that there was a sequel coming, so like the sequel reboot series, Fuller House, on Netflix. So I ended up watching Full House. I really loved Full House. Like, it's a very family-based comedy. And the fact that it's males looking like as males that are single parents. So, you know, Bob Saget's character playing the role of the single parent, and it was an amazing show of its time, and just like seeing these characters, you know, grow, especially the kids, the girls. You know, you've got, you know, DJ, Stephanie, and Michelle, and then you've got the three main male characters who are looking after these three girls, and that's Danny Tanner, it's Jesse, and it's Joey. And Joey was, you know, being the comedian. He's trying to be the funny uncle. Jesse was the cool uncle. And Danny was, you know, just trying to be a cool dad. But most of the time it was very hard for him. So the concept of having a single father, like a single parent that was the father, was actually really, really, really cool for a TV show back then. And then, you know, Fuller House, you get the three sisters, although one missing, so Michelle didn't actually come back. Yeah, so you've got the two main sisters, so DJ and Steph. They've grown up. They're adults now. They've got their own life. DJ gets the original house, so they live in the original house from the first series, and it's actually really cool to see that they decided to go back to the same house again, and man, Candace Cameron Bure has not changed. Like, she is gorgeous as ever in her, like, right now, as an adult. And so is Jodie Sweetin, and those two ladies, man, they look amazing for their age. I think Jodie is like around my age, to be honest, maybe a little bit older. But just seeing them on screen again in Fuller House was actually really cool. So I did actually enjoy that myself. Okay, so let's sort of go from US sitcoms to British sitcoms. So Britcoms. I've seen some random Britcoms, so British comedies. One of them growing up, classic Mr. Bean. Absolutely love him. Rowan Atkinson is an amazing comedian, an amazing actor who can do physical comedy so well. And I just love Mr. Bean. I think we've watched the Mr. Bean episodes at nauseum, although there wasn't very many of them. I've watched them at nauseum. I love it so much. And it's all about his behavior, his physical comedy. There's not a lot of dialogue in his show. And that's what's so awesome about this. Just the fact that you get the comedy through the physicality of his behaviors, his facial expressions. It's so iconic that you cannot go without watching Mr. Bean. You have to watch Mr. Bean. It's the best. Some other British comedies that I grew up on, Fawlty Towers, although not of my time. My parents would watch it when it popped up on TV randomly. Fawlty Towers is definitely a show of its time. You're watching it now, there's a lot of problems, we'll say. If we're looking at it from a social standpoint, from a PC standpoint, there's a lot of problems. But let's just forget about that and just pretend we're watching it back then. And John Cleese is just classic. Amazing actor. I've only seen him in a handful of things, but he is very much well known for Fawlty Towers, and I really enjoyed that show. Another Britcom that I'd like to bring up is Black Books. Black Books is from the 90s, I believe, and that is just another classic Britcom to watch. I've watched that show at nauseum. Dylan Moran, Bill Bailey, Tamsin Greig, those three together are hysterical. Just amazing. Bill Bailey has to be my favorite of the three, and playing Manny. And Tamsin plays Fran. Dylan Moran plays Bernard Black, who owns the bookshop Black Books. It's a funny concept of the fact that this bookshop owner doesn't care about the bookshop that he works at, that he owns. He doesn't care. He just wants to sell the books. He doesn't want to he's got no customer service skills whatsoever. None. But then you bring in Manny, and all of a sudden the dynamic changes, and Bernard is trying to stop Manny from selling more books because Bernard is such a lazy ass. That's why he doesn't want anything to happen, and he just wants to have this bookshop to show that he is quote unquote working, but he can still be lazy doing it. So Black Books is another classic that you need to see. It started back in 2000. It only ran for about 3 seasons. But it is the humor in this show is just, oh my gosh, it is funny as, and I love it so much. We'll rewind back to Fawlty Towers times to then find that I ended up buying the whole series of Have You Been Served? That is another British comedy of its time, and it kind of resonates with a lot of retail workers, let's just say. It is good fun. It essentially reminds me of a department store here in Australia called David Jones or Myer back in the day, where it's a very upper class department store, where it has like different levels with different sections of what's being sold. So like one level could be, homewares, another level could be women's clothing, another one could be men's clothing, and then et cetera, et cetera. And man, the stuff that they say in that show, you cannot get away with if you were to do that in front of customers as a retail worker. It blows my mind that that's the sort of stuff that they would talk about, the way they behaved as retail workers in front of customers. Like, they're trying to be good with their customer service. They're doing their best to stay classy as possible and maintain good appearances. But then you throw in the oddball customer where they're either trying to haggle with you or, they're after a particular item in a particular color, in a particular size. And then the retail worker just, gets a little frustrated. And I don't blame them. But being that this particular comedy show just shows you that rather than keeping it to themselves, they actually say what they're thinking sometimes. My gosh, I am rolling on the floor laughing a lot of the times when I'm watching that show. I've watched that series, I think, a couple of times from start to finish. I definitely need to go back and rewatch Are You Being Served? It's a really, really good British comedy. You need, if you haven't, I recommend you check it out if you are into that kind of comedy. It is old school, I will say. Are You Being Served was out back in 1972 and ran until 1985. Absolutely amazing TV show. Definitely worth checking out. It's really good. Give it a go if you have the time. I'm going to wrap it up with my all-time favorite sitcom that I absolutely love so much. I've watched, but here's the thing. I've watched so many sitcoms in my life that most of them I cannot remember at the moment, because I have, in the last 12 to 24 months, in the last couple of years, I have been binging a lot of different sitcoms and Britcoms that they've all kind of meshed together. And let's just say there's probably quite a few that I haven't mentioned that I absolutely love as well. But my all-time favorite sitcom, and this is going to come as a surprise to a lot of you who either don't know me very well or would not have thought that this is the kind of comedy show that I would watch. I love MASH. Yes, that's right. MASH 4077, the war-based sitcom, is my favorite comedy show. Absolutely love it so much that I've watched it from start to finish so many times that I've scratched my DVDs to the point that they skip. But I am so glad it is now on a streaming service, so I won't have to worry about that. Originally, I started watching MASH back in high school. I think I tried it once on a random day where it was on TV and there was a random episode on. I didn't actually realize that it was a comedy. I just saw army uniforms and switched. I was like, nope, it's about war, it's about armies. I don't need this. So I switched it out. Come to when I was about 18 years old, I think it was. I switched on the TV and I saw the show again. A random episode was on. But this time I saw, the scene that was on the screen was, they're in their uniforms, they're lazing about in their tents, but they've got martini glasses. And then all of a sudden I hear a laugh track. And I thought, oh, this is a comedy. Let me see what it's about. So I ended up watching it. And then luckily enough, there was another episode straight after that. So I think they ran about two episodes to sort of fill out an hour. So I watched the following episode to that, and I fell in love. I fell in love with MASH. That year, I also got my first job because I was in year 12, so it was my final year in high school. I got a job at Kmart, and I found out that my Kmart was selling the box set series of MASH. And this particular box set actually looks like a book. So you would slide it out of its cover, you'd open it up, and on the front cover of that box set, there's like a mini little clipboard that has the episode guide in it. And I thought that was really cool. And then you've got, I think it was like quite a few sort of pages that sort of flip out of the disc slips. And I think with this whole box set, they also there was like an extra, like a special features disc, a special features DVD, and then they also gave the original MASH movie. I actually never watched the MASH movie, and I still haven't. I think I tried watching it. I probably ended up getting through maybe halfway through it, maybe less than that, but I stopped. I'm not sure what the reason was, but I do need to go back and actually watch the film itself. But it also came with a special features disc, and I absolutely love that about DVD box sets, where it gives you a whole disc full of special features about the making of, the actors behind the characters, the way that the location scouting and sets and all that sort of behind the scenes stuff. I love watching behind the scenes footage and interviews and all that sort of stuff. That stuff really intrigues me. That's kind of why I really love that's why I love the idea of being part of the film and entertainment industry. That's why I ended up studying multimedia, or ended up doing like video production, ended up doing TV production, all that sort of stuff that goes with the entertainment industry. And now I'm sort of dabbling in my own sort of thing of being in front of the camera. And of course here as a podcaster. So seeing that sort of stuff always makes me happy. MASH, absolutely love it. It's about the Korean War. But it's about one particular MASH unit. So MASH stands for Mobile Army Surgical Hospital. And it's just a bunch of doctors and nurses and just soldiers working at a hospital base near the front lines. And it's a lot of fun, because the fun side of it is these doctors they cause chaos. They're lazy sometimes. They just want to have fun in a place where it's war torn. But then you get the serious side of the show, which for me is what makes this show amazing. The serious side of it being that, it's war. War, a quote from the show, war is hell. Or the fact that they call it a police action. So seeing the serious side and then the humorous side in a sitcom, I love that. And I feel like that's what they're starting to do a lot more these days in a lot of these sitcoms. And MASH is definitely an iconic classic sitcom to watch. It may not be one of those type of sitcoms where it's filmed in a TV studio, where it's got the multi-camera sort of situational sort of scenario like Big Bang Theory. or Friends, but the fact that they actually have a sitcom based on war, there are a lot of other sitcoms that are based on war. For instance, I know that Allo Allo is one, and that's a British comedy. Another one I think was Hogan's Heroes, Army Dads. There's quite a few different army-based sitcoms or comedies, but I feel like the most well-known one is definitely MASH, and I absolutely love it so much. And that is my absolute favorite sitcom. And I know that being in my early 30s, not exactly something I would, you would have thought that I would be interested in, because it's a show that was run from 1972, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. Oh my goodness. Yes, I was right. 1972 to 1983. So well before my time, but absolutely brilliant. 11 seasons of amazing acting, funny, humorous moments, serious moments as well. So there is a bit of drama in this, but it's just, I can't gush about it anymore. It's just so good. The episodes are about 20-ish minutes each. If you have the time, try to get your hands on MASH and watch it if you are interested in a war-based sitcom. Definitely worth checking out. Alan Alda, he's pretty much at the age where he can't really travel much. So I don't think I'll be seeing him in Australia anytime soon, unfortunately. My dream would be to meet Alan Alda, even if it was via a Zoom call or something. I would love to talk to the man. He's really into his science. He's got his own podcast called Clear and Vivid, that I have listened to in the past. And a lot of the people he speaks to on that podcast, mainly science related, but he talks to a lot of different types of people and about different aspects of that person's life. And he's a great conversationalist, and the way that he's a very good interviewer as well. So if you'd like to listen to a podcast that's about, science or just interviews in general, Clear and Vivid. I'm not sponsored in any way about this, but I have listened to it in the past. It's a very good podcast. And they're definitely worth checking out. So go check out Clear and Vivid if you'd like. And I highly recommend MASH. And I know I'm probably going to be biased about it because I love it so much, but definitely worth checking out as well if you are into that sort of comedy. I will have to wrap it up now because I think I've spoken enough about sitcoms and MASH in general. So, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Many Thoughts I Have. If you'd like to check out more of my content, you can watch me stream live at twitch.tv/foolishfuji. I also have videos available to watch over at youtube.com/foolishfuji. And you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. All the links are available in the show notes. Remember to look after yourself and your mental health, and I'll chat with you next time.